Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the storm. We threw past the curve, a curveball. And I think I messed this up at the beginning of the broadcast and everything, man. I think I said this backwards, but back in those days, man, I don't know if y'all saw my cameo in that joint.
Yeah.
But I had a whole lot more hair then. And Curb had a whole lot less. So I'm going backwards. Yeah. He caught up with me and everything, but
bless each other. Y'all blessed each other. Y'all like, lay hands on each other.
What was that, Jonathan and David? I put on his garb, he put on mine. He started looking like the king, I didn't. But welcome back to the storm and everything, everybody. We've been cutting up with a dear friend of mine, Pastor Kirby Anthony. He's been gracious about coming along and hanging out with us and everything. I cut you off because it was too perfect, man. I had to throw that in there when you threw that line at us and everything. But we were talking about controversial lyrics, something I'm very familiar with. Controversial lyrics and rap records. I did a song on masturbation because I know a lot of brothers in the kingdom are suffering with it, and they got mad at me for that. But we were talking about controversial lyrics. Didn't want to cut you off, but to kind of go along with what you're saying, I also wanted to commend you because there are a lot of things about you that I don't even think you realize because you're too busy serving the kingdom and stuff. So I just want to throw those things out at you. When we met, you came to Charlotte and you were leading a multiracial, multi-ethnic church, and we're very specific about that. Now, I don't know if you know this, Curb, but typically our people, when we go to multiracial, multi-ethnic churches, we submit to white pastors. Nothing wrong with that. Is that what you do and everything? But it takes a special type of gift and a special type of grace and all those things to lead and shepherd a people who have no problem. I'm talking about we had Hispanics there. We had Asians there. We had one sister, I ain't going to say her name, and I don't mean it to be disrespectful. I'm not exactly sure what her nationality was. Yeah. But we had white people. Your praise and worship directors are white. So that doesn't happen often in the Kenya, and I'm just curious as to whether or not you're aware of the fact that you're influencing those people. Were you aware of the fact that there wasn't that many black pastors shepherding multiracial churches when you were doing it?
Yeah, I was. As a matter of fact, because that statistic that you just shared, it's been circulating for a long time, particularly among African American pastors. You know, where we say black people will follow a white pastor, but you rarely get white people that'll follow a black pastor. So you know what I'm saying? Like, so I was aware of that. I was aware of that statistic. Absolutely.
Well,
I mean, honestly, that kind of sounds like my church. Actually, the pastor is black, but we're multiracial. It's I love it. He says the reason he goes for that because that's how heaven is going to look when you get there. He says, so you might as well have it here. And then, I mean, be used to it. But he also says that the most segregated hour of the day is Sunday at 11 o'clock. Because we all kind of congregate to, our own or wherever we're going or wherever, whatever feels good to us. But I've always been like, I just love people, period. The color never mattered to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. What's funny is even with my music, because it's so unorthodox, I get more encouragement from white people than black people. Like it's the white people that hear my music.
They definitely do your downloads because the black people just want to. Sorry.
That's real.
I got in my car leaving the white congregation one time. I didn't have enough. I didn't have enough to give them. I give away, and God has actually told me to do this. So I have no problem with this. God has actually told me to go into black sanctuaries at times and just give away everything I had. And I said, I rebuke you, Satan, in the name of Jesus. I said it respectfully because I just was thrown off for like 2 seconds. But I wasn't going to be disrespectful. I was going to definitely go with what God told me to do. But what he had told me later was, because I went up kicking myself, even though I had been obedient. And he had told me that everybody that needed what you had to give them didn't have the money to pay you. Stop being disrespectful and do exactly what I tell you to do, exactly how I told you to do it. Now, I understand that. But then there are other situations where I've gone into black churches and I know they got money.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting at the table, and the woman says to her friend, "Y'all don't have to buy his stuff, baby. You can just dub it off my. Do you know I can see you?" I went in a white church with 500 CDs, and that wasn't enough. And I was in the car on the way home, just like, wow. And they were calling me, "We need 200 more. I don't have 200 more." We got granddaughters, and well, when can you get them? And it was just amazing to me. But that's just my rant. I'm sorry. Let's get back in the spirit now.
No, that's real though. That's real. That's absolute. So
yeah, bro.
But it does make me think of one thing too, though. So I had to tell you that because I admire you that for that one reason. Another reason is this: you've been very intentional about being who you are. Every time I give anybody the example, even when we had spans where we didn't communicate as frequently as we do, every time I have made an example talking to somebody about the body of Christ, I think about you. And this is why, because Kirby was exactly who he was, which is what you're supposed to be. I've tried to be somebody else to speak to certain people and things of that nature. I've done Christian hip hop. I put on a 3-piece suit and tried to cry. I tried to cry and have tears coming out and everything. I tried to stop the song in the middle of the song and start ministering and things of that nature. And God was like, "Be who you are. Don't try to be this person or that person. Don't try to be TD Jakes." Why? God asked me why I had the suit on. Because, and you talked about this earlier, Curb, and I was kind of thinking about what you were saying. In the Black community, we feel like hip hop is something you're supposed to grow out of, because if you notice, hip hop was never supposed to have an old school. I think what we felt as parents was, because we're always talking about what our kids are listening to, that's kind of our fault, because our parents came to us and they gave us Marvin Gaye, and they gave us the Four Tops, and they gave us the Temptations. And we were just enamored by this, like, yo, what is this? This is good. This is the Ohio players. The Ohio what? Yeah. And we wanted more of the Ohio players. Our job was then to go to our kids and give them Public Enemy. Give them maybe not NWA till they got a little older. But
make decisions.
Give them what we had, just as our aunts and uncles and parents gave it to us. We were supposed to have house parties and play the hip hop records and stuff. So we was never supposed to have a hip hop old school. So the issue becomes, every time we walk into a sanctuary now, like you spoke to, whenever they think Christian hip hop, they think youth ministry. Let's put them in there with the kids. Let's talk to the kids and things of that nature. And it's like, I can talk to the adults too.
Right.
So I think that's where all that comes from and everything. But I admire you for always being you. And I don't mean this disrespectfully. I don't think I've ever seen you wear a suit. I think I saw you with a blazer on a couple times.
Yeah.
I think I saw you wear a blazer and some, but you've always been you. And that's perfect, because I would have never experienced Christian music if it wasn't for Kirk Franklin. So nobody can say anything bad about Kirk Franklin to me. You'll get ethered.
Yeah.
I would have never came into music and done Christian music had it not been for Kirk Franklin. I would maybe not have, because when you met me, I didn't have a church home. I came to your church home because it's like, I understand this. This brother's a couple years older than me, but this brother speaks my language.
Yeah.
I was walking around in like the playground, like the kids, like my daddy can beat up your daddy, like your pastor ain't got bars. Mine does. It made me feel a sense of pride that, you just don't get, man. It's like, I know what it feels like admiring you as like not even as a fan, like as a big brother. Like, I admire this brother. Like, this is my big brother here. Like, leadership to me, because I want to get your opinion on what I'm about to say. Leadership to me is, I think you and I were talking about this one time, and you had explained to me that leaders don't find more followers, they make more leaders. And you put me in a leadership position in your church, and I didn't have, I jumped out of a seminary school, didn't finish. But he saw something in me, and he sat there and said, "This is my outreach director." And I appreciate that. And it re-energized me about the kingdom. And I don't know if I ever told you that story like that, man, but I know how it feels to me. Like, I don't even think you know that you're doing this. So I just want to encourage you and things of that nature, man, because
Thank
I
you,
said all
bro.
that. I said all that to say, like, all churches are different. When you start at R5, and now, if I can get everybody, if I can get the banner thrown up, can we throw up Pastor Kerr's banner? Now you're at Queen City Discipleship, where
Yeah.
you're the lead pastor. The website is there for y'all, queencitydiscipleship.org. There's an email address if you want to communicate with the man of God. But I just want to encourage you about that and thank you for that. And I want you to talk about what you have going on with Queen City Discipleship now. And when you're done with that, I want to ask you about this gun club, because your pastor got a gun club.
Well, a lot of them white ones do.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A lot of them white ones in the country. No, thank you, man. Thank you for those words, man.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know, man, like words like that really touch my heart, man, because you know, we all just want to do his will, man. So thank you for that. But yeah, Queen City Discipleship. Right now, you know, I teach virtually every Sunday on Facebook Live. My brother GQ gonna help me get more sophisticated with things. We talked about that a little bit earlier, so we can stream through different platforms. But you know, and you know what, G, if you don't mind, can I just talk about, you know, when we were pastoring the church and what happened, like in terms of us closing the ministry and everything?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to just share real quick. You know, so we came down in 2000. You know, I was at a church as a pastor on staff of a large ministry in Virginia. They sent us here in 2010. We started the church in 2011, and you know, we were very intentional about being multi-ethnic and multicultural with a huge value in the arts. And I think that's what helped pull us together, the arts. You know what I'm saying? Because we had the rap, the poetry, the dance, the singing, and that was the common ground of us. But then, man, you know, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. You know, I was really, and not to go deep into this, but I'll just say that I was really at the time following what I call the business model of ministry, which I don't agree with now. You know, run out, get a building, you know, pay for this, pay for that, you know, find somebody to do some music, and let's just try to attract people and get them to come on in and come on in and come on in. And you're not really discipling people biblically. You know what I'm saying? And so, and what happens is you have to, it turns more into a competition thing. Now, should we have buildings? I don't have anything wrong with the building. The church is the people. And if the people are meeting in the building, then guess what? Go to a building. You know what I mean? That's how, so I'm not knocking buildings or anything like that, but I just think that somewhere along the way, we've turned Christianity in America sometimes into this business thing where it's like, you know, like, for example, I remember I read a book before we came here about planning a church, starting a church. And the guy in the book said, the first thing you need to do is to go get a space that can hold 200 chairs. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go get a space that holds 200 chairs. Well, you don't need to do that. You know what I'm saying? For, you know, you don't need to have 200 chairs. So you want 100 and some people to come in and all that, or 200 people, whatever. And I can remember even reading in the book, they would say, you know, well, you want 200 chairs because you really want 225 people to come because the room is going to be packed, and that's going to create a buzz, and that's going to make people want to come back. And years into it, I began to realize, well, what about the Holy Spirit wanting people to come back? You know what I'm saying? What about just building relationships want people to come back?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not just this business thing where we're just trying to build numbers so we can pat ourselves on the back and go speak at a conference and feel like we somebody because we've been invited to this conference or that conference about how packed our church is. And in the meanwhile, your worship director, the youth pastor, the so-and-so pastor, everybody's sleeping around with each other, people depressed, people committing suicide because we've got caught up in this thing about driving ministry. It's the machine of ministry. But what do you do when Jesus says it's time to stop the machine? And I know that for my wife and I, we had really got to the point where we hadn't had a vacation in, you know, 7, 8 years. We were going through a lot of stuff. My grandmother who raised me, you know, helped raise me, got ill and eventually died. It was a lot of stuff going on. My oldest son, you know, was tripping or began his whole trip stuff and started going through his thing and whatnot. And it just it became so heavy on my soul, man, that I became numb. And I remember I said to my wife, like, I don't even feel like pre-day. Like I was up there talking, but I just felt numb in my spirit. And I remember to the pastor and talking to some other people. I remember beginning to feel like God, and perhaps I remember my pastor told me this. He said, Kirby, there's nothing wrong with closing the doors of a ministry and saying, okay, God, what's next? Or stepping down and letting somebody else take over. Because I wanted longevity. I didn't want to be a shooting star in ministry where you have about a good 5-10 years, but then mugs be offing themselves, putting a gun to their head, or sleeping around trying to medicate the brokenness in their soul with women, drugs, pornography, whatever it is, because you're not taking care of yourself. And I was struggling. And I was like, man, something's going on my inside, man. This is not how the spirit-filled life is supposed to be. And so I remember I talked to my pastor. I was like, should we close it? Should we stop? Because even my own wife, who I love to death, she was like, oh, in the name of Jesus, we ain't stopping. We going to keep doing this thing because God called us. I was like, but I'm about to die spiritually. I said, I'm broken on the inside. Well, we going to cast out. This ain't no devil. This is my heart. This is my soul. Something's not off. And eventually we prayed. We got an agreement. And when I said, we going to do this thing. We're going to close it down. I got confirmation from God. And when I told the people who I was leading, people were angry. They were angry. They was like, well, I thought we were going to keep going. You telling us this and that in the meeting. And now this. I tried to get two elders to say, hey, you want to take over? Nope. You want to take over? Nope. I said, all right, well, we're going to shut it down because I need a break. And I said, God, my heart is to be effective. I don't care about titles. I want to be effective in the ministry. You know what I'm saying? I know pastors right now, man, pastoring for 15, 20 years, you got 5 people in there. But because you got that little title and you want to feel good, you keep going. It's like, nah, man, I want to be effective in ministry. I want to be effective in reaching people's lives, man. And sometimes the church is the only place in America where we let people do foolish stuff and get away with it because we can put God's name in the signature line.
Mm-hmm.
So, we said, you know what, we're going to dissolve. We dissolved, started to get healed. It felt so good. After about 6 months to a year, man, I felt so refreshed and just like, okay, God, I'm feeling good again. And we had started looking, we joined a ministry here in Charlotte. And then I got on staff at a church. A church had hired me, offered me a position.
Mm-hmm.
They hired me. And then lo and behold, it's almost like God said, okay, round 2. Because a friend of mine came with an opportunity to launch another ministry. And I was like, oh, man, I told him no for like 4 months. I was like, I like waking up on Sunday and being late. You know what I'm saying? I like not having to prepare a sermon the week before and all this stuff and, all this. I like that. I enjoy, after church, I can get in the car and go get some breakfast with my wife instead of staying around, have people critique me on my sermon or tell me how they was offended by something I said in my sermon or something else. You know what I mean? And I'm being a little facetious, but man, we had this opportunity to relaunch it. So now we're doing this Queen City discipleship, and it is about discipleship. It's about discipling people, walking with people, teaching people how to follow the Lord, what the Bible says, falling down, getting back up. Yes, having correction. You know what I'm saying? Following the word and etc. And just keep moving, man. So that's what we got going on now, bro. And we believe, and it's arts focused as well.
Wow.
Very adamant about telling people to stop. I'm doing nothing now. I mean, because I got different focuses, but I always preach intimacy with God. That's so much important because you get in that quiet place and all of a sudden there's like a flow. You become like a channel and he's the water that flows through you. You have to become established with being a waterfall and you pour into the earth and not just always on the move. I do that. I honestly don't see how people don't have a private life with God and being a Christian. It puzzles me. I mean, I'm up at 4 a.m. I go to work at 6, but I'm up at 4 and I'm talking to God. We hanging out, we singing, we dancing, we doing whatever the case may be. But out of that private time is the activity that flows from me. That's the music that people get.
Yeah.
So that's the solitude that I always tell people that ask me, how are you so deep? And I'm like, I spend time with God. I actually stop. I stopped ministry work. I stopped doing this. I stopped doing that because the moment I feel overwhelmed, and I know we touched on the emotional thing, the moment I feel overwhelmed, I stop everything. I've learned to say no first, or I've learned to say, let me check, because we have a big issue with just saying yes. And don't take this the wrong way, but just because you're doing it for church don't mean you're doing it for God. I'll tell you,
brother. Yes, sir.
In a heartbeat, God and church are not synonymous. You could go to church all day and not have a drop of God. So I tell people that 24/7. If don't, I mean, because like you said, you got pastors committing suicide. You got church people going crazy because we preach ministry, but we don't talk to the emotional state of the person. We're not saying, what is your fears? What is this? What are you dealing with? We don't talk to that stuff, and then we ignore it and just say, oh, God is going to fix it. And they don't ignore it. They don't even acknowledge it themselves. So that's crazy. But yeah, man, that was a really good word. It was.
And I'd say, and I'll kind of add to that too, Kirby, because I talk to people a lot about spiritual gifts and things of that nature. And I talk to a lot of people about assignment. And I definitely subscribe to the same things you say. Like, I get a little irritated with it. Let's blame the devil for everything. And there's a demon for this and a demon for that. And there's the Chips Ahoy demon and the Krispy Kreme demon.
We give the devil way too much marketing.
But
yeah, man.
But we do realize that there's some influence. Like, he can't control anything. He doesn't run anything, but he does have some influence, and he has those imps that got kicked out of heaven with him that can help him out in doing so. So, I mean, I'm thinking about all that in the sense of saying this. There's you're not going to trick us with, this is a man of God, let's tempt him with a woman. That might have worked with some of us, back in the days, and with, some of us, it's probably even more recent. So, but once you come into the kingdom, in order for Satan to continue trying to trick you or mislead you or things of that nature, he has to present you with something that looks like God, but is not necessarily him. Like, you're still in the church, but you're working in the wrong ministry. Your voice can bring people in the doors and get people to want to lead themselves to the kingdom and come down and worship at the altar and things of that nature, but you don't feel comfortable, so you out there in the parking lot. And the demon will trick you and sit there and tell you, but you're working in the church though. But I wanted to, I just threw that in there, but I also wanted to talk about, before we get into the gun clubs, I got to get to that gun club, man.
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir. You talked about the business model of church. I see one, and this one kind of bothers me, so I just want to kind of get your opinion on it. Now, I don't want to sit up here and say that I'm telling pastors, whatever vision God gave for them is incorrect and things of that nature, but I'm going to a lot of churches now, and there's no communion. And we have church for 45 minutes, and it's always 45 minutes. We time it right. Like, the prayer team is going to go this long. They're going to be 15 minutes. The pastor's going to preach for 30. We getting out of here in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And they're real specific about this model and everything in this nature, but there's certain things I feel like are specific that should always be in church. Communion. I don't know how we have churches if we don't have communion. And I don't want to knock anybody because I know everybody has different reasons for doing this one. So this one I'm not as specific about, but I think there should always be some sort of praise and worship. I think there should always be some sort of invitation. Now, I'm old school. I came in with a Baptist church, so the invitation for me was come down, join, come down, be prayed for, things of that nature. I know a lot of churches don't do that, and that's fine. But I just kind of want to get your theory, like we talked about churches without walls. What's your opinion on where this is coming from and things of that nature? Because to me, it bothers me to the point where it leads to like some irritation. And I don't know if I need to slow down a little bit and back up, but there's certain things I feel like we should always have kingdom. There should always be some kind of invitation, because we just had praise and worship. We just ministered a good word. You could have had two people that was ready to give themselves to the kingdom right there. And that, God forbid, they can walk out the building and get hit by a bus. But the reason I came over your house is because you gave me an invitation. I never would have came over your house if you didn't ask me to come. And there are some people that may need that extra push or whatever, that may need that invitation to come down and join the church, or they're willing to walk right back out. So I just kind of want to get your theories on that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, I think that and tell me, and I could be wrong, but what you're describing is a preference, like your preference, right?
Mhm.
That's what you prefer.
Yeah.
Which is nothing wrong with that, because we all have
Except for
different preferences.
communion, 'cause I personally feel like communion should always be at
Oh,
every
yes,
church.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Communion is that's a sacrament. I mean, Yeshua said, as often as you do it in remembrance of me. So, there should be some type of expression of communion.
Mhm.
Even the Apostle Paul spoke about it, because he said the reason some of y'all dying is because y'all taking communion and you doing it sinfully. You know what I'm saying? In First Corinthians, he talks about that. So communion, absolutely. But this is what I wanted to get shared. Over the last I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago, I began to attend these trainings where it talked about pastors would talk about how in order to reach millennials, they have to begin to do certain things in the church. And it can go at even before millennials, Generation X, I think, maybe, or whatever it is. And there came this train of thought that church can't be just for church people. Like, if we want to attract those who are not in relationship with the Lord, those who are, de-churched, which they were in church, but then they walked away, or maybe unchurched, which meaning, not even saved, we have to look at what are we doing in the service, and, what's the purpose of it? Does it align with our mission? And what can we do? We have to look at it from let's use the word sinner, from a sinner, somebody that's not in relationship with the Lord, somebody that's seeking, etc., from their point of view. So I've heard people say, and I particularly, I don't offer an invitation in front of everybody. Like I'll say, we say, hey, look, after service, we have some prayer counselors. If you would like to give your life to the Lord, or you have something you want to pray about, you could come down and see these people that'll be lined up at the front. You know what I mean? Because I personally feel like sometimes it would be embarrassing for people. You know what I'm saying? To come down and everybody's looking at you and everything. So it's not that we're doing away. I'm just saying something that I did, or we used to do. Like, if you want prayer and you want to know the Lord, we have people here that can pray with you, but it may not be like in the service, people walking down, because people would share. Remember how we used to do those little connect cards and people can fill out stuff and share, and people would share, you say, well, hey, can you write on there? What do you think? And so it's not the church folk, but it's like people that are coming to church that have never been, that, they're giving it a try. Maybe they might feel like, well, I don't want to come down in front of everybody. I'm kind of embarrassed, and etc. And so the goal is to get them saved. And so we would say, okay, look, what if we began to offer and say, hey, look, after service, we're going to have some prayer counselors. If you want to come down, they'll be here to minister to you, pray with you on some issues, and etc. And then once you pray with them, then you can point them in the direction of, hey, look, you just gave your life to the Lord, according to, our doctrine, you are saved now. Your salvation is eternally secure. We want to invite you to come be a part of this class that can help you to go deeper and further, etc., whatever the case is. Another thing about the timing, I am actually meeting with a pastor on Wednesday who I had attended a seminar of his last year. And one of the things that he talked about is how they keep their services short because, church folk like to stay in church all day.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But people that have no relationship with church, they ain't been to church, they may be thinking about the Lord and kind of like deciding to come in, their hearts are, they're more than likely not going to come if the service is super long. And so that's why I'm not co-signing for that. I'm just saying these are some of the things that I've heard in these trainings, and some of the stuff makes a lot of sense. Other things I'm just like, okay, I understand it. I would still do it differently, etc. And so I think what's behind it is a heart that says, hey, look, what are we having church for? Like, because here's the thing. The church leaders have a responsibility to care for the flock, number one. So we still have a responsibility to care for the flock and to help the flock get discipled. But at the same time, we have to make disciples.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's a two-end thing. And so when a pastor and elders and deacons or whoever his leadership team is, his or her leadership team is, it's like there is the responsibility to look at how do we reach our community who does not know Jesus. They're not in church. They don't want what we have. It's whatever the case is. At the same time, we want to minister to the flock that's here. And so that's where some of those decisions have come in. And pastors are trying to lead and make decisions and say, well, should we do this? We're not going to do that. We're going to make this long. We're not going to make this long. We're going to do this, do that, and et cetera. And they're just trying to figure this thing out and move forward,
Mm-hmm.
I know that they did a study on people, and they were talking about the attention span of people, how they could be sitting. You don't want a sermon to be too long because they just fade off. I've noticed this even when out praying for people. I would do a 15-second prayer. If I'm encounter somebody in a parking lot or something, I do 15 seconds because what happens is while you're praying, they start looking around at everything else to see who's watching. All of a sudden you lose them. And the goal is to keep them there. So to keep their attention on what's being said. So they did a study on the attention span of people. That's why they cut the time down like they did.
Wow. That's good. That's fair. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, y'all. Let me hear it and try to get y'all out of here, man, because Carmen and Tara ain't killing me today. Like, I didn't kill the husbands. Like, let me go and get you. Kirby, 10 lightning round, gauntlet. We got to get you on the gauntlet. Ready?
Hey, brother.
All right. Rate these 5 rappers from 1 to 5. Rakim, KRS-One, Biggie, Nas, and Jay-Z.
Oh, God. Boy.
1 to 5. 1 to 5.
Woo. Man. I don't know if I could do that, man, but I'm going to try. First, I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. All right, so growing up, okay, look, I'm going to say Rakim.
He got to be number 1.
He got to be number 1. I'm going to say Rakim. I'm going to say, man, Jay and Nas are interchangeable, man. And Nas is the second to Rakim. I mean, it's like, oh, man. Oh, boy. Okay, I'll just say Rakim, Jay, Nas, Biggie, and who else?
KRS-One.
Who was the 5th one?
KRS-One.
Oh, man, teacher. Chris, man. For me, I'm gonna put KRS before Big.
All right, cool.
So I'm gonna say, yeah. All right.
Cool. That works.
But that's Monday though. That's Monday. I have a whole different one for Tuesday.
Oh. All right. All right. Rochester, New York, or Charlotte, North Carolina.
What you mean? Like, what's the best? Or what you mean?
Preference: Rochester or Charlotte. You got to pick one.
Charlotte all day. Charlotte. I love my city. I love where I'm from. Wouldn't want to live there right now. And I know I'm gonna probably make somebody mad, but I prefer to be in I prefer to be in Charlotte right now. But I love where I grew up. It raised me, born and bred. Maybe the man who I am. Where I gave my life to the Lord. Where I had a lot of firsts, some good, and some we ain't got to get into, but Charlotte. But in terms, if I had to choose a place to be born and bred, The Rock all day. The Rock.
I got you. West Coast or East Coast hip hop?
East Coast.
All right, we're gonna ask you a Marvel question. If they really had that Civil War for real, who winning, Captain America or Iron Man?
Iron Man.
Batman or Superman?
Oh Lord, I was just talking to my son about this. I'm gonna go with Batman because he can make the kryptonite joint like he did in the movie. He made the kryptonite suit.
All right, so in the championship round, we're gonna put Batman up against Iron Man. Who you taking?
Oh Lord, I gotta go with Iron Man.
No addition of Guy. Jodeci or Boys to Men?
Boys to Men.
So Guy or Boys to Men?
Oh man, I'm gonna go with Boys to Men, but I will say that joint, you can have a piece of my love.
Yeah.
Waiting for you. That joint rock. That joint that's like the atom bomb on R&B joint back in the day. But I did like more Boys and Men songs than Guy songs.
Who would you say is your biggest influence outside of Jesus?
My biggest influence outside of Christ. Probably my older brother. Probably my older brother, Martin. At one time, absolutely.
And get these young brothers some advice. Most important quality in a woman other than her love for Christ is?
Her ability to think for herself.
Gotcha. That's 10. We appreciate it, man. I got to hear about this gun club, and I got to let y'all go, man. Like I said, Carmen and Tara is not killing me tonight, man. I'm going to be that friend that y'all can't hang with no more.
Nah, you good. So yeah, man. Gym Lord Global Self-Defense and Gun Club. You know, it was really just birthed out of a heart, man, to serve the community and to help the community to protect themselves and to arm themselves. You know, I'm former military. I'm a disabled vet. I believe in Second Amendment rights. You know, although I do want to say I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat either. I'm politically homeless, you know, because this world is not my home. I'm kingdom minded. I'm a kingdom dependent, as Dr. Tony Evans says. But I do believe in guns. I do believe in having firearms. And so we started close to about maybe, I don't know, 6-7 months ago, man. It's you, and the purpose and the goal of it is to help arm people of color. You know, specifically, anybody, but you know, it is Christian based, you know, and we talk about the importance of arming yourself, man. You know, and just not just arming yourself, but being trained, you know, being trained in how to take care of yourself. And where it birthed out of was, well, yeah, to arm yourself and to be trained on how to take care of yourself and your family. We don't trust in guns. And look, brother, that's a whole nother show. I've been attacked so much. How can a pastor, you know, be pro-gun and all this stuff? And I'm like, you know, bruh, it's whatever, man. But we don't trust in guns. We trust in God. But we do believe in having wisdom and just doing the best that we can to protect our families and ourselves. You know, and I always have my weapon. I mean, I'm concealed carry, and I always have my weapon. Always. Like, look, even sitting at this desk, I keep at my work desk every day. I keep me a little 38 just sitting on my desk. Just in case somebody come to my front door acting like a fool, I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna say, Lord, you know, Holy Spirit, deal with their heart. But if they try to act foolish, then you know, I gotta, you know. So I'm just telling you, and it's a mo, ain't nothing, man. I got some arsenal up it. Well, I got an arsenal up in this joint. You know what I'm saying? But you know, you probably wasn't expecting that, but you know, I
was gonna say that's the first. Nobody's ever strapped up on
when I go to the mailbox, I got 9 somewhere on me. So it's like, you know, the spiritual and the physical, dog. The spiritual and the physical.
And we prayed before we did it, so we covered. Like I say, that's the first. Ain't nobody ever strapped up on the Thunderstorm before, but I look forward to it happening more often now, to be honest with you. Hey, got any final thoughts, man?
No, man, that's all good. That last little joint, I'm good with that. That you put lock and load. Okay, that's what. Yep, I'm good.
Fellas, I appreciate y'all so much, man. It's been an honor and a privilege to hang out with you tonight, Curb, lead pastor at Queen City of Discipleship. The website is queencitydiscipleship.org. Email them at queencitydiscipleship@gmail.com. It's been an honor and a privilege. Let's not wait too long before we do this again. If anybody's up, check me out tonight. I'm gonna be on Philadelphia Sports Radio, 94 Whip FM. I'm gonna be on Jody Mack show. He's calling me at 12 a.m. I can't take a nap because I'm gonna run for still skin this thing and sleep through it. But we're gonna be talking about some Eagles football as usual and everything. And I'm thinking you can probably ask me about Carson Wentz. So if y'all hanging out, radio.com. If you're not living in Philadelphia, radio.com /94 Whip. That's gonna get you on the Jody Mack show tonight. He is always 10 to 2 every day. It's gonna be an honor and a privilege to hang out with him and talk about some Eagles football. And shout out to my ladies at Bam Woman Magazine. Precious Thornton, as you see on the cover there, issue number 2. You can download that now. Shout out to my girls Latoya and Jennifer Robertson for being good sisters to me. Kirby, I appreciate you, Aunt. I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, brother. Much love.
Much love. Y'all been tuning into the Thorn. We appreciate y'all for hanging out with us. We're gonna catch y'all on the next go round.